So can you start by telling us your name and your role at the club?
Yeah, my name's Alex Webb. I'm the club's sports scientist.
Can you explain what your role is?
So my role is it's in two ways, or it's both on the pitch and off the pitch. So on the pitch, essentially I'm looking at making the players as robust as possible and as fit as possible so they can get through the games in the best possible way. And then off the pitch is looking at a lot of numbers, a lot of data to see how we can go about doing that.
What does an average day at training look like for you?
So coming in the morning, we'll prep all the nutrition side of it. So we'll look at making sure everyone's got their protein, all the waters are set up good to go. Then we'll have a training brief with all the staff, so we'll look at what the theme for the day is, extensive, intensive, what our GPS targets are. So we're looking at a certain amount of total distance, high speed, sprint distance, or if it's an intensive day, we're looking at a set number of accelerations and decelerations. So yeah, we'll discuss that with the staff, and then we'll go out to the pitch, make sure the warm-up's set up, which I'll take the warm-up. Again, that all kind of links into the session, so there'll be a theme for the day. Are we looking at, for example, if it's a high-speed running day, how can we engage in sprint mechanics, or how can we activate the players as best as possible? And then it's about using the latest research to try and mimic this. Again, the warm-up's always, especially the way the manager wants to do things, he sees the warm-up as a chance for athletic development rather than football development. So we'll look at ways we can incorporate techniques or work on the individual as well as the team as a whole. So yeah, take the session, and then depending on the type of session, we'll look at, do we need to do sprints or do we need to do additional top-up work or things like that. And then yeah, that's pretty much the gist of the job.
How closely do you work with the head coach and the other coaches?
This role especially is the closest I've been with a first team coach. The manager and the other coaches, they're all very receptive of sports scientists. It's a very modern, forward-thinking group. So every day I think we've got 2 or 3 meetings where we're looking at, different ways we can incorporate sports science, the latest trends, the latest research into how making our players robust and fit and as good as possible, essentially.
Can you explain the warm-up you did today in the session?
Yeah, so there's fairly recent data come out about over 60% of sprints are used are performed where your hips are kind of tilting rather than at a straight line run, and then over 80% of data is as a curved sprint. So we were looking at ways we can develop that in the players, making them faster, more receptive to opening up their hips. For example, a centre back, ball's coming over his head, he needs to keep an eye and see where it's coming from. So we're looking at how we can activate your core in that possible way, but then also being comfortable at running at fast speeds. But then also from an injury point of view, about having that hip control, which then also protects hamstrings and groins more than just a straight line sprint might do. So we were looking at receiving it from one end, passing out to the other end, and just that hip control.
So the GPS pods that you put on the players, what is it you're measuring with those?
So we have set metrics that look at, so it measures millions of metrics. Often people get lost in it. So my kind of philosophy is to keep it as simple as possible when you're negotiating or when you're discussing it with the coaching staff, because at the end of the day, numbers is probably the last thing they care about. So I'm looking at total distance, high speed running, sprint distance, accelerations and decelerations, and then just their metabolic load as well. So just kind of comparing all of that.
What have you been doing with Charlie Riley recently in his recovery from his broken collarbone?
So Charlie, it's an interesting injury. So obviously normally in football, most injuries are kind of lower body, lower limbs. With Charlie, he had a collarbone injury. So he, running wise, is able to do absolutely everything. So the idea is get him as fit as possible in the time that we've got with him. So today he was working on an extensive day. So we're working off his mass speed, which we got off the Bronco, and doing over-under work. So he was doing reps at 120% of his mass and a recovery at 80% of his mass. So working the aerobic system, which previously has been an area which he can improve on.
Is there sort of different fitness programs and different loads for players in different positions?
Yeah, so when looking at it, centre backs, they typically cover the least. A lot of centre backs will tell you they do that on purpose because that just means they're in the right place, which fair enough, it might be. And then for wide players, so wingers, fullbacks, they're going to cover more high-speed running than most players. So that is something you need to take into account when you're conditioning a player. So when you're organising a training session, are you exposing wide players enough to just, for example, perform on overlaps for fullbacks? So are they getting that GPS target that they would need to perform in a match day? Are we exposing them enough in a training session? So that's a target there. And the midfielders, again, they're going to cover a lot amount of total distance with a lot of accels and decels. So again, how do you replicate that in training? There's another big part of the stuff that goes on behind the scenes.
What does your job look like on a match day? On a match day
is my favourite because obviously, first of all, it's the least amount of work, and the second of all, it's rewarded at the end of it. So I'll arrive, make sure everything's set up for the players, so warm-up set up. Again, we're talking about nutrition, so all the supplements are out, new proteins made. Again, each player, so we're doing a bit of research at the moment about which player responds best to what supplement. So we've done performance testing on them and seen which players rely more on oxygen and which players rely more on glycogen. So the players who use glycogen more than oxygen, we're going to encourage them to have more gels or more kind of shots, whatever it is that they prefer to have. So yeah, make sure that's all set up, and then take the warm up, and then during the match, when they go out, make sure the subs are kept warm every so often, so keep them ticking over, because again, just 15 minutes of sat down massively reduces jumping and sprint performance. So if there's a sudden injury and they need to come on, you can't afford to have 5-10 minutes to get them up to speed. They need to be ready to go. So make sure they do that. And there's some occasions where the manager has concerns about players' numbers. He'll turn around and he'll say, what's X numbers looking like? And if it's starting to fatigue, I'll then advise and say, no, he's running the same as the whole game, or yes, he starts to drop off. And then obviously after the game, that's my favourite time of the session, and that's where I make a lot of enemies because I just get to run the boys. So that's about trying to mimic match day loads through kind of post-match top-up runs. So the concept we've come up with is that after the match day and then on the Monday, the two of them combined equals a match day load. So we usually tick off the high speed and the sprint distance on the match day to keep the session short, and then on the Monday, real nice intensive session to hit the accels and the total distance. So yeah.
What do fans maybe not see or realise about the fitness side of football?
So yeah, probably that every player is different. So if we're looking at Simon Murray, he loves to do repeated sprints. He's very, very good at it. Whereas another player might be more consistent at doing a general kind of continuous same speed run, but then if they need to do that repeated sprints, that's where they struggle. So when fans say, oh, this player needs to be fitter, there's a lot that goes into that. So is what type of conditioning work is going to be most beneficial for them? Do we get them just doing sprint after sprint after sprint? Do you get them to work on their strengths? Do you get them to work on their weaknesses? So we have, I think, every different type of profile in this team. You've got boys who love to sprint, boys like your centre mids. We've got some who can just run for days, but if you need to get them over and over again, that might be something we need to work on. So it's about individualisation of the player. It's probably, yeah.
We noticed your little runs that the players do as they come out the tunnel before the game. What's the reasoning behind that?
Just to get some fame for myself, really. Because we send them in normally 10 minutes before a game starts. So at say it's a 3 o'clock kickoff, at 2:50 we'll send them in. So that's 10 minutes where they're not really moving. And again, there's studies, research out there that shows a decrement in performance in jumping and sprint performance. So if I can get them just doing a bit of lift, both physically make them ready, but psychologically, if they're there as a team and they're doing 2 max sprints, and it just gets them settled into the game and gets them settled to the pitch a little bit before just coming out and kicking off. I always found, it gives them a bit of help mentally as well as physically. So it's something I've always done.
How does your work help recover and prevent injuries?
So recover, again, we're talking about this nutrition side of it. So a lot of research into getting the right things into the players in the right amount of time. So this is called the window of opportunity, the golden zone, whatever you want to call it. It's the first half an hour after a game, where players often feel a bit sick, they might not want to eat, not want to hydrate properly, and it's about forcing players to get it into you, because that starts a process of recovery. So that's a big part of it. And then again, just looking at the numbers, so we do a lot of fatigue testing, post-match fatigue testing, where we take groins, hamstrings, glutes and calves and quads, that was it, and we'll test them based off their previous max scores. And if we see a massive performance drop or strength drop, then we know, right, there's something not right there, so we'll recommend they don't train today, or they need more recovery, or they need to do additional kind of methods of recovery on top of that. So that's a big way we do it. And then just every post-match, making sure the players are doing things right. So recovery strategies, we've got loads of different ones in the building, from ice baths to compression to game readies to nutrition, making sure that side of it's all correct. But then on the flip side of that, if they can train, not just putting a blanket over it where you've played 70 minutes, you're therefore not training, when there's nothing wrong with them, when physically they're ready to go again. So it's about getting the biggest benefit possible.
And finally, what's the most rewarding part about the job?
My granddad, to be honest. So my granddad, every club I've been at, I've got off the phone to him every game, before and after. So if it's on telly, granddad, we're on telly, or I know, and he'll tell me who we're playing. And if we've won a game, he'll ring me about 10 minutes after a game, and he'll tell me what's going on in the game, even though I'm at the side of the game, I've seen it. But it's very rewarding, because he isn't a fan of whatever club, he's a Bolton Wanderers fan, but he actually cares more about the club I'm at than the actual club he supports, which is, I don't think you can beat that.